What's up, Fisherman Fanatics? Hope you guys had a great weekend. I am going to, as promised, talk about Substrate today. Things have calmed down a little bit, so I can get back into doing, some more educational videos and talk about things that people really want to hear instead of just updates after update after update of fish. So we do have some more fish room updates coming soon, so stay tuned for that. But for now, we are going to talk about Substrate. So if you're new to the hobby, you may be asking yourself or searching the web as to see which substrate you should buy. The most commonly used substrate throughout the hobby is gravel. And simply because it's more readily available, it's something that every pet store sells, and when you go to set up a fish tank, they always tell you, you gotta have gravel at the bottom. Well, you have to have something at the bottom, so to speak. Substrate can be either gravel, sand, or nothing, believe it or not. You can have bare bottom tanks. Most commonly, the bare bottom tanks are used for breeding or for raising fry, simply because it gives them a better chance to survive. Gravel is the most commonly used, like I said, because it is pushed the hardest in most fish stores, simply because it's there. It's what they market. It's what everybody started using originally, so there's nothing wrong with using gravel. We have gravel in quite a few tanks. We got it in 72-gallon bow front. We have it in the 60 upstairs, and we have it in a couple of the other ones as well. We do have sand as well. Now, sand can be a little tricky. If you are new to the hobby, you have to make sure you're cleaning it correctly, otherwise you can have problems. Ammonia pockets can build up in the sand, and when you go to clean the tank out, you can release the ammonia pocket, which is a huge spike in ammonia, and you can have problems with your fish dying. So if you're just starting off and you want to use sand, I would recommend getting fish that are a little more sturdy or durable until you get used to using it and you can kind of tell how it's supposed to be cleaned, and you get the general feel for it. Reality, as long as you're cleaning the sand correctly, you're perfectly fine. There are tools you can attach to the vacuum to clean sand, and it is a different style of cleaning versus gravel. With gravel, you have to take your gravel filter and you have to plunge it down into the bottom of the gravel. If you do not, you will not be truly cleaning the tank, because food and other debris can actually go through the cracks in the gravel to the very bottom and sit there. And if you don't clean that out, it can also cause a rise in ammonia. It may be a gradual raise, but it's still the same effect. So you have to make sure that you're going through each section of your gravel, plunging it in over and over and over again to get all the stuff out of the bottom. With sand, all of the sediment sets right on top, so you don't plunge the vac into the sand. That's one way you can create ammonia pockets, because you're pulling it up and then you're letting it go, and then debris can settle under the sand, and then the sand will settle back down on top of it. What you want to do is kind of pull the gravel along the top and skim it so that you can pull all the stuff off the top. Now, they do make attachments for gravel, or for sand, for vacuums. It's just a box about this big, and it's got a circle on the top, and it attaches right to the vacuum. And what you do is there's spikes on that, and you drag the spikes through the sand. Now, this allows you to skim the surface along with stirring up the substrate and making sure that you're not getting any buildup for ammonia pockets. So as you're going through, you're literally just dragging it right along the surface of the sand. Easiest way to do it. The adapter is probably like 10 bucks. Something I highly recommend if you're just getting into it. It'll make your life a lot easier, and it'll let you worry a little bit less about doing it. Now, we did cover bare bottoms. We've talked a little bit about gravel, and we've talked about sand. There are other substrates such as like Eco-Complete or other fertilizing substrates. There's crushed coral, which helps out with your pH levels, and there's other substrates like that. It all depends on what you're using and the reason you're using it for. If you're just starting out in the hobby, I would recommend going with gravel. My personal choice, just because it is going to be easiest to clean and there is less of a learning curve. If you've been in the hobby for a while and you know how to take care of a tank, and you know how to clean it all out, and you had your fish tank set up for a while and you're setting up a new one, you can go with sand if you want, or you can go with any of the other ones. Just make sure that you're reading each and every substrate that you get until you're familiar with it. The back of them will tell you general tips on cleaning and how to take care of it, and for things like Eco Complete, eventually, you know, the nutrients in the soil will wear out, so you have to re-up it or recharge it. It will tell you how to do that on there as well. You know, just make sure that you're following the directions is the biggest thing I can tell you. And something that may seem so minor can cause so many problems. I've posted all of the videos of catastrophes and fish that we've lost and everything else. And it could be from substrate, it could be from, I had one because the heater was completely faulty. I mean, you never really know what just the most minute change can do to your tank. It's amazing. So if that includes substrate, you have to make sure you're paying attention to your substrate. So again, gravel is the most commonly found substrate you're going to see, simply because it's sold at most pet stores and fish stores as basically the substrate to have. You can get sand. If you do, you're going to want something that is extremely clean, sanitized. Pool filter sand works really well. That's what we use in all of our tanks that have sand in them. They also sell high quality sand such as Carib Sea. You can order those right online. You can even get some of them in the stores. They are a little bit more expensive, but they do look really nice. We have Carib Sea Black upstairs in the shrimp tank, and you can see what that substrate looks like. It pops out, it glitters, it's nice. But back to the main topic, what should you use? Excuse me. You should use whatever you feel comfortable with. If you're just starting out, like I said, I would recommend going gravel, but that doesn't mean you have to. You can get sand, or you can just leave it bare bottom. It's entirely up to you. Each substrate has its benefits and its drawbacks. You know, gravel is an amazing substrate to have, although it does allow the particles to settle in the bottom of the tank, and it can cause some damage to certain bottom feeding fish, such as cories or plecos. But at the same time, if you're doing free floating fish, there's nothing wrong with using gravel, because it does have a lot of surface and it does allow for the creation of a lot of bacteria. Sand is also great because it just all sets right on top, and there's no cracks for it to fall through. You can see exactly how dirty the tank is, exactly how much waste they're producing, how much food they're not eating, and you can balance yourself out from there. So it's really nice to use sand too, but cleaning it's a little bit more tricky. It's not hard to do, you just have to get used to it, and once you do, it's a breeze. Bare bottoms take the longest, in my experience, to cycle, simply because there isn't enough surface for the bacteria to grow on continuously. So it does take a little bit longer to cycle those tanks. However, if you're doing breeding, or if you have fry, or if you have pairs of fish that are breeding, it works out, because you can see exactly what's going on. You can monitor exactly the levels of waste. You know exactly what to clean, when to clean it, where to clean it at. The fry have an easier time simply because they don't get sucked down into the substrate and get stuck in gravel, or get caught up in plants and can't get out. So it's easier for the fry. Like I said, downside, it takes longer to cycle, and it's not very pretty. It's not as attractive. There isn't plants, there isn't any livestock in there other than the fish. So it can be a little bit more boring, but if you're breeding fish, it works out a lot better than the others do. So they all have their positives and their negatives. It's entirely up to you what you want to use. We have all three tanks going. We have bare bottoms, we have sand, we have gravel. It all depends on what type of tank it is. The 72's got gravel in it. Chances are there's going to be a school of tetras in there, of different varieties of tetras. So the substrate, the gravel, will help the colors stand out a little bit more, because it is a natural substrate. It's a neutral substrate. There's whites and browns and blacks. So the fish won't go super duper light and they won't go super duper dark. They'll just keep their normal colors, natural colors, which is another thing that plays into substrate. If you put in an extremely dark substrate, the fish will tend to try to blend in a little bit more, so they'll darken up a lot. And it doesn't necessarily mean color. It's just I have the Substrate tetras that you've seen in the 60 upstairs. We had them, a couple of them, in the shrimp tank initially to get it cycled, or to finish off the cycling process. It was mostly cycled at that point. And they went from red to quite literally almost a black color. They were a deep purple. And as soon as we put them back in the 60, once that shrimp tank was cycled, lo and behold, they went back to red again. Now, if we were to put them into a tank with white sand, they'd get to an almost pink color, a very, very light pink. Fish tend to blend into their environment simply as a defense mechanism for coverage and camouflage. So that's something else to keep in mind when you're using the different types of substrates. If you're trying to get them to color up the best, natural has worked for me. It's, like I said, lights, darks, mixed together, so they don't really blend in, they just color up. Now, if you're using a light sand or a light substrate or a dark substrate, white sand, black sand, you're gonna notice the difference in color. It's almost, it's uncanny how much they change. So those are things to keep in mind. I hope this video has helped you out. If you have any questions or concerns, comments, as always, please drop them in the box below. If you haven't already, please give me a like and a subscribe. Also share the video around so we can help get other people in the fish keeping hobby. This might help somebody else out. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, happy fish keeping.